Greetings, I'm Solidus-Skully and welcome back to some more Resident Evil action. Yes indeed, we've got more fun on the bun with more survival horror antics, the death of thousands of tragic scientists, some good, some evil, and ultimately, well, just fun all around. Who knows, we might even fight a giant pink snake or see our friend Richard again. Oh yes indeedy, we're gonna have a fun-filled day as we explore more of the mansion. You might be wondering why you couldn't have moved that little fish tank earlier, but you had to drain the water. And what is this? Huh, more explosive R for our bazooka, which is actually a grenade launcher. No idea why they called it that, but hey, I guess that's just the lackluster grasp on English this team had. So, let's kick off this round with more trivia, which I was gonna do, but I don't really have anything substantial at the moment. Well, not that I have anything really substantial anyway. I mean, apart from when we get to slightly more relevant topics, it's pretty much just more saving, more loading, more exploring, and, yeah, rooms that we have yet to access, because you might be noticing our progression is blocked off by the lack of a helmet key, which means we gotta find it and then explore this mansion one more time. But yeah, this is also one of the reasons why you need the lighter, because we have a blank sheet of paper, but what is this? I'm not too sure what this is. I think it's something that cartographers do for maps sometimes. I want to say carbon dating, but that doesn't seem like the right turn of phrase, but whatever. The point is, now we have the map. And now it's gone. So I should probably talk about, and I'm also curious about the time frame actually that Resident Evil takes place. I mean, at least in terms of timeline, it probably would be if I paid attention to the dates, but yeah, power's still working, lights are on. Some might say it takes away from the atmosphere, but if anything else, I'd say that this is more of a hint towards what's going on than anything else, because, I mean, if the lights are still on, who's paying the bill, but more importantly, somebody seems to still be here. Or at least have projects going on that require our immediate attention. And I ain't just talking about the zombie dogs or the zombies. How curious. It furthers my theorem that someone is a traitor. And I think it might be Rebecca. But I mean, regardless of such, anyway. I suppose now it's time, would you in for those tangents, and might as well talk about one of the initial gameplay styles of Resident Evil before the game was in the current form that we know it now, because again, as many people will continue to talk about with Resident Evil 7 and 8, yeah, this game initially was going to be in a first-person kind of mode. I mean, I guess maybe they kind of wanted to treat it in a similar fashion to, well, I guess maybe Sweet Home, but from the player's perspective, which I suppose would have added to the nebulous nature of the four-player selection where you would have initially played as, you know, Chris, Jill, Gelzer, or Dewey. So again, I guess, you know, you could have pretended that you were either one of these characters. But yeah, this was pretty much scrapped due to problems with the PS1 rendering full 3D environments. Not necessarily that it was impossible for the PS1 to do, but I mean, rendering that sort of environment, you know, with the poly count, it was taking too much space with the game, which I think is the primary reason why it was scratched, but I think also it has something to do with the fact that most FPS games on the PS1, and I'm really struggling to think of many that I can say that weren't, you know, pre-rendered in a Doom kind of way, or anything else. Yeah, I guess it was just something the PS1 had trouble rendering. I mean, again, the PS1 was also rather infamous for a lot of texture warping. The N64, I think, only really had GoldenEye as its one console FPS, and was, I think, one of the progenitors of that sort of trend in and of itself. And as for the Saturn, I can't really recall anything. I mean, unless maybe one of the D games came out on it, but I think those were pre-rendered environments, so yeah, due to the polygon count being excessive, this is pretty much where, again, they switched to the pre-rendered environments, and that's how we got Resident Evil as we know it today. By the way, this puzzle is relatively easy, but make sure you don't let the poison gas escape from the ass. Also, it's replaced by a bit more of a pain-in-the-ass puzzle in the remake. Well, I mean, I say pain-in-the-ass puzzle, but I mean, it's really just a case of guess which knight does a thing to do a thing. Whereas here, it's pretty much just push the statues over the poison gas filter and, bada bing, you do the thing and you'll be just fine. And everything is alright. Off we go! Steady. Yeah, I don't know how exact you have to be. I think you do have a bit of leeway, but just make sure, well, the entire square of the thing is covering up. Because again, if you don't, then, well, the poison gas will eat you alive. And there we go. There was a switch. Will you push it? Yes, because we need items to progress with our story. But I mean, after this point, we'll pretty much... yeah. I think we've only got one crest left again, and after that we've pretty much had our run of the mansion, so... yeah, so we'll be moving on to greener pastures soon enough. Excuse me. But in the meantime, we do also have a few... actually, that's another thing, actually. Something that didn't occur to me until... well, right until I saw this loading screen. Like, I mean, if Resident Evil was initially meant to be first person, then I suppose maybe in some cases the door loading screens would have been a remnant of that. Because, I mean, like, you know, first person... I mean, I know it's there to disguise loading of an area and all that, which is probably why they kept it in, but I mean, it seems like the sort of thing that they would have kept in, you know, to add to the tension, or just, you know, from Jill's eyes, you open the next door and feel scared, or whatever. I mean, I suppose that was probably the same sort of mindset they wanted to have for Ethan in Resident Evil 7 and all that, so... yeah, who knows, really. But in any case, let us get a little bit more of the green stuff, man. And, yeah, we're gonna be coming across an old friend of ours, even though we've never seen him before.
Richard, what happened?
Oh, Jill, this house is dangerous. There are terrible demons. Ouch!
You're wounded. What kind of demon attacked you?
It was a huge snake, and also poisonous. Ugh.
Poisonous? Oh no. Richard, hold on.
There is serum. Oh no, I should have brought some with me.
No problem. I'll go and get it.
Thanks.
Hold on, Richard, we must save you! In admittedly a bit of a pointless side quest that the remake does actually make an improvement upon. I mean, you do get to save Richard, he does help you out in a boss fight, and he does give you a shotgun. But, yeah, much like Richard here, he's pretty much done for, with his lack of forethought to bring some serum. Although, to be honest, his injuries look a little bit too severe to the point where I don't think even serum can save him. But yeah, this is pretty much a minor subplot. Again, if you don't get back to Richard in time, he'll die. If you do get back to Richard in time, he will die. If you don't bother to do any of this, actually I'm not too sure what happens if you choose to ignore Richard. I guess maybe Jill won't get back in there until you get the serum, so... I don't really know. I might have to experiment with another playthrough one of these days, but yeah, it's basically a pointless commute all the way back to the save room to get the serum. That is to say, the little medical room on the second floor, so... yeah, that's where you need to go. Your map should pretty much tell you where to go, although I don't find the map in Resident Evil games to be particularly navigable. I don't know, it's just kind of bizarre. I mean, I kind of brought this criticism up in Tormented Souls, but, yeah, they don't really clearly mark what area is supposed to be what and where you need to go besides what room you're in. I don't know. Lack of cohesion is pretty much all I'm going to say about that. Also, yeah, would you believe, something I didn't actually notice, but I mean, you might be able to see it on the end screen, actually, but the guy on the back of the, at least on the front cover of Resident Evil, or at least for certain versions of the game, for the original, yeah, that's meant to be Richard on the front cover. Kind of surprising he gets like a role, but yeah, that's meant to be him. So I guess maybe the him on the front cover is meant to be his encounter with a certain boss fight we'll be facing at the end of the part? I don't know. Weird, really. Actually, I think, diving back into Resident Evil lore, actually, I think he was meant to be the one who was, tasked with babysitting Rebecca. It was either him or, Captain Enrico, but... yeah, that kind of goes to show his role. And I mean, Rebecca's still alive and Richard isn't, so, who's the real badass here? The answer is Rebecca, who sadly never made much of an appearance again, except for... well, I mean, not counting prequels like Resident Evil 0, Vendetta. Actually, I kind of miss Rebecca, to be perfectly honest. I don't know, like, her character was a lot of fun, and they just don't use her as much anymore. Kind of a shame, really, but then again, I can also kind of be said for a lot of Resident Evil characters. You would have thought they would have brought back, like, Carlos, Sheva Alomar, in spite of what some people might have to say about the gameplay. I don't know. There's a lot of characters in the series that just don't really seem to have a lot of use. I mean, I suppose Resident Evil 6 did bring back Sherry, but haven't seen her since. I don't know, I guess maybe they're probably a little bit more preoccupied expanding upon the current cast with the, you know, Rosemary and all that kind of stuff from Resident Evil 8. So who knows where they're going to go for the 9th entry. Be interesting to see. Well, I mean, in the meantime, we also have Resident Evil 4 Remake on the horizon, so who knows? Anyway, time for some editing magic, because all you're really missing is, well, commute. Teleporting!
Here's the serum. Richard, hold on. I'll give you a shot now.
Jill, here's my radio. You should keep it. I'm...
in love with you.
No! Richard!
Jill, be careful.
Richard. No! I can't believe he's dead. God, excuse me. It seems that now I am dying from a terrible demon. Ouch. But I mean, this does also serve a secondary function, because, I mean, I suppose with Richard's death, it is pretty much also there to act as a warning, like, hey, dumbass, save your game, or else, you're gonna be feeling it in the morning. And, well, I mean, yeah, I suppose it is one of the instances where the game does actually signpost a few decisions, because, I mean, if the bloody handprint over there wasn't enough of an indication, yeah, this is, well, we're gonna be fighting the boss. He's the fucking boss. So, yeah, that's pretty much all you need this key for. And it's useless now. Discard it? And, yeah, thankfully there never is a situation in this game where you would happen to need some keys again, because, otherwise the discarded option would be kinda shit. Unless it did that, like, Alone in the Dark thing, where you could pick items up wherever you drop them, or Resident Evil 0, I think, also had a similar mechanic. But anyway, yeah, we're just gonna scavenge a few more items, have a save of the game, get ready for rock and roll, and, well, yes, we're going to be meeting a very familiar serpentine presence. By the way, you also need the light for this segment, otherwise you won't see shit. And apparently nobody in Stars thought to bring a torch along. Oh, I'm sorry. To use the American area verbiage, the flashlight. So I'm trying to remember, was it the original? No, it would have been the remake, actually, because I think there was a literal monster closet, apparently tapping into its inner Doom 3, rather than the... I mean, this room isn't terribly important. All it's really there for is just to get a few extra supplies and pick up some ammunition. But I mean, I will say that it's important to save up some of your acid and grenade rounds right now because, well, obviously enemies do scale up in power, and you might just need it. I mean, I wouldn't say it's terribly important for this boss encounter, since I'm pretty sure you can actually just rush right in, grab what you need, and get out. But again, I'll stay my tongue in that for later, when we actually get to the boss good and proper. But in the meantime, we must run away and save the game. Yes indeedy. To kind of talk about recently deceased friend Richard in a little bit more detail, yeah, apparently a lot of the Bravo team members were actually added in the second draft of the Resident Evil story, which is specifically the one written by, Ewell. Trying to remember his first name, but it'll come back to me in a dream, which I'll lose in another dream. But yeah, they were basically added into the game to add additional exposition. I believe, a lot of them were initially gonna still be alive, so I guess maybe to kind of deliver that exposition, but I guess maybe either for lack of voice actors or for, well, time constraints or whatever, they basically saved all that for the memorandums, and, well, yeah, a lot of them usually just end up finding dead, like Kenneth and Forrest. And now, Richard has joined them. And if you're wondering what happened to the rest of Bravo Team, we won't be meeting them until Resident Evil 0, which I'll get to in, I don't know, 2 years or so. I don't know when I'm going to get to the rest of the series at this stage, but we're still firmly in the tank controls era, so it'll be quite some time before we ever get to actually Resident Evil, unless of course I decide to jump the timeline or some shit. Though, I mean, really, if I'm considering on tackling any other Resident Evil game post tank controls, I think it would probably be Lost in Nightmares for Resident Evil 5. Because I mean, among other things, it does legitimately continue the story, and oh yeah, that's about all I can think of at the moment. But again, that's way off in the future. Don't know when I'll tackle the rest of the games. Probably Resident Evil 6 in 8 years. 7 remake in 12. 8 and 13 years. Who knows? Actually, now that I'm thinking about horror commentaries, I still got Silent Hill Origins, The Room, and Homecoming I'm gonna skip. But I mean, I'm closer to finishing the Silent Hill series than I am with Resident Evil, so it's neither here nor there in this case. And now for a save of the game. You need an ink ribbon to save, because if you don't have one, then you ain't saving your game. And unlike most games of, you know, this past, this doesn't have a password feature either, so yeah, what you see is what you get, and if you ain't got an ink ribbon, you gotta save the game. Which, I mean, I guess it would encourage, like, you know, players being very speedy, which, I mean, in terms of Resident Evil tradition, I mean, speedruns are very popular to do with the series. I mean, it even encourages it, because again, if you get the game done in under 3 hours, then you get the unlimited rocket launcher. Although I'm not really too sure what if it's like ranking specific or if it's based on anything else. I mean, certain Resident Evil games do often have stipulations. Code Veronica, to use an example, does have one of the steeper ones where I think you can only save like once, and even then that's a mandatory in-between point in the games when you get to the Arctic base. And I think you can't use any first aid sprays, you can't use well, I'm pretty sure you can use healing items, but I'm pretty sure there's like a damage threshold. Either way, like, I mean, if you want to challenge yourself and push yourself to the extreme, then well, that's what Resident Evil is there for, much in the typical Capcom tradition of doing a must-die run mode, a Buster-only run, even though I think in terms of Mega Man games, that's usually more of a self-imposed challenge. But I mean, either way, that's just what Capcom has been famous for throughout their illustrious career of games, and going a bit flip shit in the 2000s, and then not flip shits in the today day and age. Which, I mean, really, it does kind of surprise me that Capcom have been doing really well. I mean, it's encouraging to see, so, I mean, they have regained quite a bit of goodwill compared to, you know, the late 2000s, early 2010s, but I don't know. It's the redemption arc we have been all waiting for. But now it is time for us to finally get to the borscht. And what could it be? Well, since Richard mentioned a giant snake, I think we're about to enter an Anaconda movie. There's only been 4, actually, yeah, 4 of them. So, now we Anaconda 5 up in this bitch. Anaconda 5. Which, I mean, fittingly enough, actually did revolve around, like, you know, blood orchids and viruses and, like, bioweapons. So, Resident Evil and Anaconda, go! Oh, and by the way, I will say that the snake looks a hell of a lot better in the Saturn version than it does in the PS1, because in the PS1 version it looks a bit, well, I don't know, it just looks very poor. Whereas, I mean, here, the model quality of the Yawn, as its official name, is actually really good. Now, there are 2 ways this can go. Again, if you manage to avoid getting poisoned, you're going to be avoiding, well, the ending of this video. But of course, if you do happen to get bitten, then you're pretty much poisoned, and what the poison status basically is that you can't see your health status, and you need to use a blue herb, which we don't have at the moment. So, yeah. I mean, the poison status in and of itself won't actually kill you, but it will take you down to 1 HP, and as you can see here, we're already in the danger mode, which you can see whenever your heartbeat monitor goes to red. I'm surprised it didn't have like a flatline kind of thing to indicate danger, but... Oh yeah, actually something I also forgot to mention, there's no limping status, unlike Resident Evil 2 and 3, so yeah, you really gotta check your health status. But Yeah, you don't actually need to defeat the yawn because, well, as you're about to see here, it's pretty much slithering away because, well, it's a snake. It's a giant pink snake, and it's a bit of a pussy. Anyway, it's basically just gonna toddle off to parts unknown. But again, it does leave us free to collect our prize. We'll be back. There we go, that's the ticker. At least I'm pretty sure you can run in and get it immediately. I might be misremembering a few steps here. Oh well, we have all that we need, and even though we're poisoned, I'm sure Jill is gonna be alright. So on that note, I am Solidus-Skully, keeping new metal, and next time on the Resident Evil commentary, yeah, Jill's gonna be happy, healthy, and feeling a little bit woozy. What?
Am I poisoned? Give me the serum.